Is only getting stronger across this country. So I am here to give you a few housekeeping notes. This event right now is being live streamed. Together, we all can send an appropriate message to the Liberals and to spread the message. If you have Facebook or Twitter, I encourage you to pull your phones out right now. I'd pull my phone out if I had it, but I don't. Most of us, if not all of us, have smartphones. And hit share on Pierre's post right now. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. People are always asking us as MPs and members of the Conservative Party of Canada, how can we help Pierre and bring home common sense to Ottawa? There's a number of things we can do. The first thing you do is everything that we are posting, the Conservative Party is posting, that Pierre is posting, that local MPs are posting, please like and share. That's how we reach.
I'm just moving everyone because the lights.
You can leave positive comments to help spread our message. It's time to fire Justin Trudeau. Do this alone. We can't do this with our 119 Conservative MPs and all the amazing workers and volunteers with the Conservative Party of Canada. We need to do it with everybody here. Everybody here is so important to this cause. We need you to volunteer. Please reach out to your local Conservative associations wherever you live to indicate that you're ready to volunteer.
Everyone, I gotta move.
That you are ready to spread the appropriate message.
Lights are too bright.
We are bringing back a Conservative majority government. To do so requires volunteer work, and it also requires money. So please, donate, donate, donate. Any denomination is acceptable. There is strength in numbers. If everyone here today were to chip in $5, it would make an amazing difference to our team. So those are my final thoughts. We've got an incredible night ahead of us. And I'd like to turn matters now over to the amazing. Oh, okay. We'll work on that. We will work on that. I don't have any jokes. We're good? We're done? Okay.
Hey, how's it going, guy?
I'll take it. Are you just going to complain, Riley?
One, the lights are too bright. Second one, the lights are too bright. Third of all, the lights are too bright.
Just one more.
Dad, where I was sitting, you can't see nothing over there. You can't
Go
see
somewhere where you can.
everyone. I can't just go in front of people.
Just telling you the press.
This is why I don't like you two.
Give me space, give me space. You do this fucking too. Give me my phone. Alright, let's go. Alright. Okay. Hang on, folks. We're just waiting for Pierre Poilievre. What's going on with this guy? What'd you do here?
I don't know.
You don't know. I do. There you go. Okay, there you go. All right. Now we're back in business. We're just waiting for Pierre Poilievre now, everyone. There you go.
One second, everyone. The lights are too bright to get any sort of footage.
They line up pretty much.
Waiting for Pierre and getting a good angle.
Just launch it like, oh, me too.
Peter! Hey!
Excuse me. If I go on the stage, I have to record this.
I think so. Don't ask
Excuse me.
Oh, yeah.
Introduce whoever you want. Member of Parliament or
Perfect. Good. Really good.
What's to come with Pierre? Got so excited himself he forgot to tell everybody who he is. So you like us in Ottawa amongst the partners, we always like to say, Larry and I, we're brothers from different mothers.
Excuse me.
There you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know what, before I begin, I just want to introduce some of the representatives, local representatives in the crowd. We have Mona Patel, City Councilor from Niagara Falls. We have Sal Sorrento, Regional Councilor from St. Catharines. our candidate record from Cambridge. We've got Pierre here, a former candidate from Niagara Centre, and she's the current chair of the Niagara Parks Commission.
Is there a remote on here to make that work?
Somewhere in this
You have to press on that.
this massive crowd,
There are some that you can get a remote to.
Yeah.
Dan Hughes. He's our member of parliament from Flamborough. You know what, ladies and gentlemen, just think about that. This, Niagara, and our journey towards bringing it home started just a year ago. In April, here in this same room, 2,000 people gathered to hear from our leader, Pierre. And you know what? He talked about taking things back, right? Fixing what was broken, restoring hope to Canadians. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, with your help over the next several months, we're going to make this gentleman, our leader, the next Prime Minister of Canada. I am so pleased to have this opportunity to introduce the leader. Ladies and gentlemen, here's just a few words about Pierre. Just a few, I had to write them down. Ladies and gentlemen, he wants to restore Canada's promise. He will fight for a Canada that rewards hard work. He will put Canadians back in control of their lives. You know what? He's going to stop the out-of-control inflationary spending that has made life so unaffordable. He's going to remove the gatekeepers that block Canadians from making things at home. And you know what? He's going to restore safer streets. Pierre believes in a country where the state is the servant and not the master. Where a smaller government makes room for bigger citizens. Under Pierre's leadership, Ottawa will finally get out of the way of Canadians' futures. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our next Prime Minister, Pierre Poilievre.
Wow, what a crowd! Great to be back! Thank you to the great Tony Maltinelli. Give him a round of applause. Boy, does this guy ever love tourism. You know why I decided to make him my shadow minister of tourism? Not just because he fought for tourism in Niagara as part of the local tourism body, not just because he helped bring millions of dollars of tourism home to this community, not just because he would go over the Niagara Falls in a barrel and would bring more tourists here, but it was actually the thing that caught my attention is that when Justin Trudeau came to Niagara Falls, Tony is such a local champion. He was even willing to put aside partisanship to give Trudeau a tour around the falls. He would do anything for the area, right? But he was standing near the falls. He was standing near the falls. But this crowd gathered around. They said, "Who is this guy? Who is this guy?" And more people were saying, "Who is this guy? I know him from somewhere." And finally, Someone said, what do you mean, who is this guy? Everybody knows who this guy is. This is Tony Baldinelli. Everyone said, we know that. I mean the guy next to him. Boy, the indigenous people sure gave a warm welcome to Trudeau. They were not buying what he was selling. No, they certainly were not. That must have bruised his ego up a little bit, eh? Yeah. Maybe you should get that one-way ticket to Hollywood after all. But out there, it cost us a lot less money for him to do his acting down there. Speaking of cost of money, I actually crossed the border into the States today. Did a little bit of real estate comparison. Have you done that? But we saw a house down there. Nice, respectable house. $210,000 Canadian. On the New York side of Niagara Falls. Came back to this side, same almost identical features and condition, $560,000. Incredible, eh? In fact, real estate on the Canadian side of the border costs between 45 and 75% more. And that's on average in border communities. Sometimes it's 100 or even 200% more expensive in Canada than in the United States. Tony, why is this? Somebody said the carbon tax. We'll get to the carbon tax. You know we're going to axe the carbon tax. Not entirely a wrong answer. If you have no carbon tax, the utility bills on a home would be a lot more affordable, but not necessarily the home itself. So why is it that the Americans, where they have 8 times the population, on a smaller landmass, pay less for real estate than we do here in Canada? Why is it? Because they can actually get things built south of the border, right? We have the fewest houses per capita of any country in the G7, even though we have the most land to build on. In fact, Vancouver is the 3rd, and Toronto, the 10th most expensive housing market anywhere on planet Earth. More expensive than New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, London, England, even more expensive than Singapore, which has 2,000 times more people per square kilometer than we do here in Canada. We have no excuse. We have land. Yet under Justin Trudeau, housing costs have doubled in 8 years. The cost of rent has doubled. The cost of a mortgage payment has doubled. The average down payment has doubled. It's double trouble for housing under Justin Trudeau in this country, isn't it? Now, why is that? We can't build houses and we can't build anything in this country because of the massive bureaucratic apparatus at all 3 levels of government that are standing in the way of Canadians getting things done. That's why we have fewer houses per capita. In fact, we have fewer houses per capita today than we did in 2016 when Trudeau took office because the population has been growing faster than the supply of housing. So, we have common sense solutions, don't we, Tony? Tony's a person who knows how to get things built. We need others who will do the same. The cities who are responsible for the permitting that's slowing down the cost, slowing down the building and driving up the cost, and adding as much as $1 million to the cost of every new home in Vancouver, $400,000 to the cost of a home in Toronto. Those bureaucracies and those city politicians care about one thing: money. They want money. Let's be honest. We have politicians sit down, they pat each other in the back, they put up press releases about how wonderful it is to work together in partnership and collaboration for the mutual interests of all their constituents. You've heard it all before. At the end of the day, they want money. And the federal government sends them a lot of money. So here's my message. They're not getting what they want until I get what I want. And I want housing built. I will use the billions of dollars of federal infrastructure money as a lever to get the cities and provinces to speed up building. I will require every large city that wants federal grants to speed up and lower the cost of home building, to boost building permits by 15% per year, or they will lose some of their federal grants. Those that exceed the 15% target will get a building bonus, carrots and sticks. We will require every federally funded transit station be surrounded by high-density, high-rise apartments so that our youth and seniors can live next to the bus or train. And we have 6,000 federal buildings that are underutilized. I'm going to sell them off along with thousands of acres of federal land so that we can build. Build. Build more homes. Look at that sign. Build more homes. Build more homes. Build more homes. Build more homes. We need 6 million by 2030 to make it affordable. But we want you to bring home more of your paycheck. Right now, that's not happening. After 8 years, Trudeau, you're giving more and more to the government. In fact, the average Canadian spends more on taxes than on food, clothing, and shelter combined. The worst offender is, of course, the carbon tax. The carbon tax, which is now 14 cents a liter, and Trudeau and the NDP want to raise it up to 61 cents a liter. Who wants to pay 61 cents a liter? More taxes, higher costs for our local businesses, our farmers, and our workers. My friends, this is a nonsense policy that does absolutely nothing for the environment. Let me tell you about the little miracles of Manotick. There are tomatoes grown in just south of Ottawa, in a tiny village called Manotick. Anybody been to Manotick before? Beautiful little spot. Right on the river, they grow these beautiful tomatoes. But guess what? It costs more for a Manotick tomato in Manotick than it does for a Mexican tomato in Manotick. Why? Because Trudeau charges a carbon tax on the CO2 released into the greenhouse, even though that CO2 is absorbed by the plant life. He must have missed that day in science class. Right? And so the Mexicans don't have to pay the Trudeau tax. They can make the tomato cheaper, and then we send the signal to our consumers to buy the tomato that had to be trucked by train and trucked and trained up here, burning fossil fuels right across North America, pumping more emissions into the atmosphere, driving money out of our country, making us more dependent on foreign countries at the same time as he brings in new fertilizer penalties that want to limit the amount of fertilizers our farmers can use, so that then they actually have to drive their tractor over longer distances to produce less food, which means burning more fossil fuels and making us even more reliant on foreign countries and our food more expensive. So here's my common sense plan. We will remove these fertilizer mandates and axe the tax so we can produce affordable food. And we're going to make work pay again in this country. Right now, work doesn't pay. If you were a single mom earning $60,000 a year with 3 kids, you go out and earn another $1, you lose 80 cents to childcare clawbacks, income tax, payroll tax, and gas and carbon tax just to get to work. So your wage is $25 an hour, you're losing $20 of that extra hour of work to the government, and you're keeping $5 for yourself. No one should be expected to work for $5 an hour. It doesn't make sense. And no wonder we have a labor shortage. We punish work, we get less work. We should be a country that rewards hard work again. And that's why a Poilievre-led government will reform the clawbacks and cut income tax so you bring home more of each dollar you earn, and hard work pays off. Who asked us that, Dan, what is a tax form? And he said, well, it's actually the opposite of a school report card. With a tax form, the better you do, the worse off you are. Right? You get penalized for doing the right thing. Kind of like everything with this government. Punishing good, decent, hardworking people to the benefit of the insiders and the elites who stuff their pockets with the money of the hardworking Canadian people. Let's take, for example, the Bank of Canada. Right? Bank of Canada. Yeah, another uppercut, right? After Trudeau said the rates would stay low for long, don't worry. Remember when he gave that smug answer to the journalist who said, what about the interest on all that debt? He said, well, you know, interest rates are low, Glenn. And there'll be a low forever plan. People believed him and took out mortgages. Well, surprise, the rates have gone up. The Bank of Canada helped cause this inflation that we have today. Let's face it, they did it because they wanted to please their political master, Justin Trudeau. He wanted to double our national debt without consequences. He didn't want to borrow real money, so he had to print it. So the supply of money in Canada, it's called M2. This is monetary quantity of money that includes bills, coins, and bank deposits. In 2020, we had $1.8 trillion in the Canadian economy. Now, we have $2.4 trillion, which means the money supply has grown by $600 billion, or 32%. During that time, the goods and services that money buys has grown by 4%. In other words, we're growing the supply of cash about 8 times faster than we're growing the supply of the goods and services that cash buys. It's real simple, folks. You have 10 loaves of bread at $10, it's $1 a loaf. You double the number of dollars to 20, you're not twice as rich. It's just now you pay $2 for every loaf of bread. Money is not wealth, it is just a means of communicating economic transactions. It's a technology by which we move value over time and space. Intrinsically, it has no value of its own other than the things that it can buy. We don't need to create more cash, we need to create more of what cash buys if we want to be wealthier. So this is my plan for that. We're going to stop creating cash. We're going to cap government spending with a dollar for dollar law that requires we find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending. It's the same way that a single mom manages her household budget. Dan Hughes, who's fought for common sense fiscal policy his whole life, will tell you this. A single mom or a small business that wants to spend more here spends less there, or gets a bargain here and there to do both under the budget. Government does no such similar thing. But if we brought in a common sense dollar for dollar law, we would force politicians and bureaucrats to seek better value for our money. The Americans had this law in the 90s that allowed them to balance their budget and pay off $400 billion of debt. But as soon as that law was lapsed, they went right back into deficit ever since. Which proves that politicians don't have legal limits on their spending. They will uncontrollably pass on the costs through more and more and more spending, and they will do it through inflation, debt, and taxes. The truth is, we need to cap spending and force the common sense trade-offs on politicians that everyday Canadians and small businesses have made. You've been pinching your pennies long enough. It's time for government to start pinching its pennies too. There's no savings to be found. It's a lean, mean government they already have. It's full of waste, my friends. First of all, the Bank of Canada just paid itself tens of billions of dollars of bonuses for its failure. Right? The Infrastructure Bank has been around for 5 years, hasn't completed a single solitary project, and yet their executives got millions of dollars of extra money. Ladies and gentlemen, a little bit of common sense would go a long way with our public money. I'll give you an example. We used to send out discs to blind Canadians with books on them so they could listen to them as audiobooks. And we spent a lot of money on the mail, on the cassette. And then the Canadian National Institute for the Blind said, guess what? We can save you 80% and increase the number of books that our people can read. Why don't you make the books fully digital? We have a technology that will allow you to email the books to our members and sign deals with other English-speaking countries so that any audiobooks that they've recorded can be shared with us, and then we'll share all of our audiobook recordings with them. We cut the cost by 80%, and we gave people 3 times as many books that they could get faster and easier. That gives you one example of how you can save money and do more with less if you've got a little bit of common sense, right, my friends? Instead of creating more cash, we're going to create more of what cash buys. We're going to grow more food, build more houses, and we're going to produce more of our energy in this country again. Some people will tell you that you shouldn't care about Canada's energy sector because that's just the West and the East that do oil and gas. My friends, it's a big problem for Ontario. When Alberta Saskatchewan, interior British Columbia, and Newfoundland are under attack by the federal government. It hurts every single worker. Today, I was touring businesses in St. Catharines and Niagara Falls who make the parts that go into oil sands and other mining projects. We manufacture those steel products that are used by our fellow Canadians in the energy sector. So an attack on our energy sector is an attack on all Canadians everywhere in this country. We are bringing in 130,000 barrels of overseas oil every single day, even though sending the money to the dirty dictators, because we can't build pipelines here, right? Because Trudeau blocked pipelines. We had 15 proposed natural gas liquefaction proposals on Trudeau's desk when he took office. 0 have been complete. He says there's no business case. Even though the Japanese Prime Minister and the German Chancellor flew all the way here to get our natural gas, he said, no, call the Kremlin. Get it from Putin. We'd rather not produce the 1,300 trillion cubic feet of natural gas we have right beneath our feet, he said. And he says there's no business case. The Americans have built 7 of these facilities in the last 10 years. The Qataris have doubled their production. The Germans built an import terminal in 194 days. We have a huge advantage. The shortest shipping distances from North America to Europe and to Asia are from Canada. We have clean hydroelectricity with which we can liquefy the gas. And by the way, another science question. How do you liquefy gas? You cool it down. What do we have in Canada? Cold weather. In fact, it got so cold in Ottawa last winter, Justin Trudeau was seen with his hands in his own pockets. But truthfully, cold weather here makes it 25% cheaper to liquefy gas. And then there's these electric cars. So Trudeau says we all need to drive electric cars by 2035. Problem is, we need something called lithium to put in the batteries. Do we have lithium in Canada? Yes, we do. Do we produce lithium in Canada? No, we don't. We cannot get a single tablespoon of lithium out of the ground in 2021 because it takes 25 years to approve a mine in this country. So what do? We ask China to burn coal in order to refine the lithium that goes into that battery so that we can all feel good about what we're doing for the environment. So does it make sense to you that we keep sending our money to other countries? Are you ready to bring home our money to Canada? To fight for our environment. You do it not by raising the cost of traditional energy we still need. You do it by bringing down the cost of the carbon-free alternatives like nuclear power. I was just at ES Fox, which is a company in this region. They make some of the modules that takes the steam out of the heated air that pumps through the turbines on nuclear power plants. They make that right here. What we need is to build more nuclear power across the country so that we get a clean, green, reliable baseload, emissions-free electricity to power our grid across the country. So here's the plan, folks. My common sense plan. We'll act C-69, the anti-energy law. We'll require a new law that protects the environment, consults First Nations, but gets things built. We'll approve pipelines to take Canadian energy from Canadian oil fields to Canadian markets. We'll build the nuclear power plants, and I will sign off on LNG plants. We'll cool that gas down to minus 161 degrees, ship it to Asia to close dirty Asian coal-fired plants, send it off to Europe to turn dollars for dictators into paychecks for our people. And you know what else we need to do is bring home our doctors and nurses. Now, the first and most obvious way to do that would be to get rid of all of these ridiculous vaccine mandates. Now we have 20,000 immigrant doctors and 32,000 immigrant nurses banned from working, not because they're unqualified, but because there is no direct way for them to prove their qualifications. They're already here. They're Canadian citizens. Yeah, he says they're driving. You know, it's funny, they say if you have a heart attack in Canada, don't call 911, call a taxi. Because you probably got a brilliant doctor driving that cab. But in Canada, we have a stupid system that shuts him out of doing his work. It boils my blood to sit in the waiting room with my little girl who's got a migraine headache because we don't have doctors to see her. We've got 20,000 of them that would be happy to get to work if only they could take a test. And then there's 32,000 immigrant nurses that are blocked from our system as well. The Filipino ambassador told me only 11% of Filipino nurses are allowed to work. In the States, they write an international exam and get to work in a couple of weeks. Here, we shut them out of their job for years. So here's my common sense plan. We have the red seal for the trades. Any red seal tradesmen here? Here we are. God love the tradespeople. We have nothing for the professions. So let's bring in a blue seal for the professions, so anyone trained abroad can take an exam, prove they're qualified, and we can bring home more doctors, nurses, engineers, architects, and powerful people. We're going to respect, we love the professions, we love the tradespeople. Enough of the disrespect and snobbery from our governments towards the people who build things, move things, and fix things, right? The working people. What's your trade?
Fire protection installer.
Fire protection installer, yeah. That comes in handy, right? You don't think about that much until there's smoke coming up into your bedroom, right? Yeah, that's right. We got a few fires to put out in Ottawa right now. Political scandals, etc. They're burning our money in Ottawa right now. But listen, we don't give respect to the trades. We give all of the money to university education, which is fine. But we need to give fair treatment. I'm going to make sure that all the federal money dedicated to training and education is fairly distributed so that trades get the same respect as the profession. Our politicians should get the same. Should be getting tax fairness. You know that a CEO can write off the cost of his private jet to go down to Manhattan for a meeting, writes it off on his taxes. But the tradesman who goes from Timmins to Fort Mac, or from the British Columbia interior to the Newfoundland offshore to do his job, he has to pay for all his travel, all his food, all of his accommodation. Conservatives have therefore introduced the Tax Fairness for Traveling Trades Workers Act, which will allow our tradespeople to write off. Work for the people who do the work in this country, aren't we, Larry? We're going to stand with the good guys. Larry here, Larry Brock. Anyone know Larry Brock? Larry was a prosecutor for years, putting bad guys in jail. Recently, he's been exposing the abuses of the Trudeau government when they've attacked their freedom. Larry, you know, the Prime Minister is worried about attacking law-abiding people. He wants to make sure you don't see or say the wrong thing on the internet. But he's not worried about the violent criminals that are shooting up and destroying our streets, right? You see this, the crime is out of control. Did you hear this, the robbery in Ottawa the other day? Unbelievable. Robber walks up to a guy, says, "Give me all your money." The guy says, "Wait a second, do you know who I am?" The robber said, "No." He said, "I'm Justin Trudeau." The robber said, "In that case, give me all my money." The crime really is out of control. It's up 32% by 2021. The new data for 2022 and 2023 are not out yet. I bet you it's going to be horrific. The last 2 years have been wild. And what did you expect? You take the most violent repeat offenders and release them the same day they are arrested. Do you know that in Vancouver, the same 40 people were arrested 6,000 times? 6,000 arrests for 40 people, that's 140 arrests per person per year. The cops often think about stopping at crime scenes and they look out the window at the criminal and they have something called FIDO. Forget it, drive on. So there's another way of saying FIDO. This is a family-friendly crowd, so we won't say it that way. But the truth is, the criminals laugh at the cops and say, why do you even arrest me? I'll be out by noon. They reoffend again. They're brought in, they're out by dinner to commit their third crime of the day. This is craziness, my friends. And then we saw the stray bullet that killed that lady near the so-called safe consumption site in Toronto. Sounds like it's not a very safe consumption site, is it? That bullet came from a gun by a criminal who had 16 probation orders violated, and he was out on the street under Trudeau's Bill C-75, the catch and release law that allows for this. So here's my common sense plan, my friends. I'm going to get rid of catch and release. I'm going to pass a new common sense law that will require jail, not bail, jail, not bail for repeat violent offenders. Jail, not bail will mean that those criminals will go into their prison cell and they will stay there until their sentence is complete. And speaking of prison cells, Trudeau passed Bill C-83, which said that the correctional services have to give the most lenient prison conditions to the offender. And based on that Trudeau law, Paul Bernardo was moved out of maximum security. People in this region don't need to be told how horrific this monster is. The news that he was released from maximum security was devastating to the families and friends of his victims. They had to once again relive this nightmare, as they do again and again and again, as he comes up for parole consideration, which should not even be a consideration, my friends. So here's my common sense plan. A Poilievre government will pass a law to ensure that multiple and mass murderers serve their entire sentences in a maximum security penitentiary. We will ensure that we will pass laws to ensure there is no eligibility for parole for mass murderers. He should only come out of prison in a box. A second chance for a young person who makes a small mistake, but we're not interested in 150 or 200 mistakes. We need common sense in our system. And we need common sense in our drug policy. 30,000 people have lost their lives to drug overdoses since Trudeau took office and brought in the liberalization of drugs in our country. And we all remember how this happened. The corrupt pharmaceutical companies pushed their OxyContin on working class people who were suffering from aches and pains. Some had lost their jobs, so their aches and pains were emotional. And the doctor said, take this. It's not addictive, you'll feel great, and it won't kill you. And guess what? McKinsey, a Trudeau-linked consulting company, wrote marketing plans that gave bonuses to any distributor that caused an overdose. That was actually part of the marketing plan. And as a result, people got hooked and many people died. The United States government sued these companies and recovered $55 billion. We've recovered nothing here in Canada. In fact, the Trudeau government continues to make these companies even richer with the so-called safe supply policy. They use taxpayer dollars to give out more heroin-grade opioids to addicts, claiming that these drugs are safe. What this actually does is the addicts get bored of the drugs, they sell them off to kids so they can buy more powerful fentanyl. The kids get hooked and then they get bored. They sell them to other kids so they can buy the powerful stuff. And the cycle goes on and on. Ladies and gentlemen, the cycle will end when I'm Prime Minister. Here's my common sense plan. We will stop putting our taxpayer-funded opioids. Instead, we will put the money into recovery and treatment. Places like I recently visited a beautiful recovery center in Winnipeg, which is called the Oaks Foundation, where they give the young people, the young men, detox, counseling, job training, exercise. The First Nations people have sweat lodges. And then when they graduate, they go into a supportive apartment right next door so they can come back for counseling and exercise and even mentor incoming addicts. This is proven to work. This is how we're going to bring our loved ones home drug-free, my friends. You know, I said earlier, we will use the dollar-for-dollar principle. How do we pay for it all? I will do what they did down south. I will sue the corrupt pharmaceutical companies and use the proceeds to pay for the treatment and recovery we need. Absolutely. We will sue them and we will make them pay. And we will stand up for our people once and for all. By the way, we will also stand up against Trudeau's attempts to shut down natural health products. He's trying to shut those down. This is about nothing more than giving more power, more control to multinational pharmaceutical companies rather than letting Canadians have the freedom and choice to try different kinds of treatments. We need more freedom and choice, not less, in the health decisions that we make. And speaking of freedom and choice, we're going to bring home our freedom to this country again. We're going to repeal C-11, the censorship law.
All right, we got to move around here because Riley put me in the light.
We're going to ban the government from creating a central bank digital currency. We're going to make sure there are no more mandates and no mandatory digital ID. And I will ban all of my ministers from any involvement in the World Economic Forum. It will stop the foreign interference by Beijing and by Davos. We will bring home control of our democracy in this country. Bring it home. 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 There's a really big philosophical disagreement. There is. You know, think about it. Trudeau believes that he should have the power to decide what to do with your money because you can't be trusted to make that decision yourself. He believes that government and not parents should decide what values are taught to our children. He believes that he should be able to take away your ability to hunt and do self-sustenance, which we did thousands of years ago. But don't worry, he'll send you a grocery rebate so that the government will feed you, right? He believes in taxing and shutting down private enterprise and then having government take over those same businesses because he believes bureaucrats and politicians like him and not entrepreneurs should decide how to run businesses. You see, it's funny, this philosophy has an inherent contradiction. It is that people as a species are not capable of deciding for themselves, but somehow they're capable of deciding for others, right? Or is there a special type of human who has greater wisdom and virtue than everyone else, who should be able to decide for the great unwashed masses that are incapable of making their own decisions because he's of greater virtue? This, the guy who thinks budgets balance themselves, who's been caught breaking the law twice, tells us that he has greater virtue and wisdom than the rest of us. My friends, he thinks that everyone else is just an ordinary person. Well, he could learn a lesson. He could learn a lesson from the great Winston Churchill. Now, Churchill was a man with a very powerful brain. He wrote 58 volumes of Nobel Prize-winning literature. But the people he admired were not great literary giants, kings, queens, chancellors, presidents. It was the common man. That's why he joined the Bricklayers Union. He wanted to do bricklaying, even though he couldn't do it well, because he understood that no matter how many books he'd written, how many speeches he'd given, all the stories he could tell, the bricklayer could do something that he could not do. And he wanted to espouse his respect for that working person. My favorite story of Churchill is when he would go into the streets of London after the Nazi Luftwaffe had bombed out the city. He would walk around, talk to the people, hear their stories. One day, he happened upon a woman who was buried under rubble. So he scraped it away along with his staff members, and slowly they helped her to her feet. She was an elderly woman, and she looked him in the eye and said, "Thank you." He stood in stone silence, tears pouring down his face. Finally, he said to his staff, "There goes greatness." You see, because he understood that wars were not won by prime ministers. They were won by the defiance of that little lady, by the defiance of the barber who put down his scissors to pick up a rifle, by the 16-year-old who lied so he could get into the forces and jump out of the trenches into a hailfire of bullets. It was won by the tea ladies who went into the factories to make the munitions of war. It was won by these great people. Some call them ordinary people, but my friends, they are extraordinary. We have those extraordinary people in Canada too. If you want to see goodness, greatness, and genius, don't look to those on top, look to those all around you. You will see it in the waitress who carries 15 plates on one tray, serves tough customers all day long, comes home to help her kid with math, and balances her budget with a minimum wage salary. She is not ordinary, she is extraordinary, my friends. The electrician who captures lightning, runs it through a copper wire.
Hope everybody's enjoying the show.
He is not ordinary, he is extraordinary. The farmer who masters the sciences of sky and soil to bring food from his field to your fork is not ordinary, he is extraordinary, my friends. These extraordinary people have the wisdom and virtue to make their own decisions, to run their own lives, to be masters and servants in their own country. When they die, they are not famous, so their names do not appear in newspaper headlines and no words are spoken of them in Parliament. But when they walk through heaven's gates, the trumpets sound for them, because God knows
you're very welcome, Green Thumb.
Their neighbors and their families on their
This
back.
guy, he's good.
And so the angels sing out, "There goes greatness." These are the common people, the common sense of the common people, united for our common home. Your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home.
Yeah.
Wow, what a speech. A lot of common sense there. I feel the energy and enthusiasm in this room. Hi, I'm Pierre, U.S. Member of Parliament, Member of Parliament. There's two things quickly to close this out. One, we didn't tell you in the beginning, but there's a test today. There's only one question though. Who's going to be our next Prime Minister? Shout it out. You got that right, Pierre.
It's hard, ain't it?
second final.
No, I don't know what you've been
I
complaining
know a
about.
lot of you want to have a
My hands
photo
are
here,
itching
have a
like
quick chat with him. And, you know, he works so hard. I've never seen anyone who works as hard as Pierre Poilievre. He's going to be there at the flags at the right of the room here with the black backdrop.
Yeah, everybody, that's the end of the show. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. We got to thank Riley. Did a lot of filming.
And don't worry if you're in the back.
Terry
The
Prepper.
staff moving along quickly. He takes time to talk to everyone. So